Was it right that you started on the banjo? Is that where you're...
Yeah, I did. My father was a clarinet player and a saxophone player, and I really wanted to play the saxophone, but I couldn't get a note out of it, and he was very discouraging, and I was about 8 years old, and I started to play the harmonica. And I got very good at the chromatic harmonica. You know, I could play Dixon of Dock Green, which, you know, was actually probably shot here.
I wish we had one here.
It went da 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 da. Yeah, you remember it. And I doubt whether anybody else does. And then I moved on to the guitar, kind of in desperation. And then what happened was that rock and roll happened under trad jazz, kind of thing. Trad jazz was a big, Dixieland jazz was a big thing in the UK. So I was doing both at once, really.
In both. And when did
Isn't that interesting?
No, it is. It is interesting because there's the history of British music in front of our eyes.
You know,
when though did you decide to start writing songs? That's when it all changed.
I was kind of forced into it. What happened was that we went to make a record with a guy that did TV music called Barry Gray, and he had a little home studio, and we played a few Shadows songs and a few things, and then he said, have you got any of your own material? And there was one song that I'd written as a kind of just an exercise, really. It was called It Was You, and we recorded it. I was about 16, 17, something like that, and so were the other guys in the band. And he sent it to a publisher, and it got published. It was covered by a Merseybeat band called The Foremost, and so that was my first song, and I was still at school. So I was a songwriter really before I got famous with the band.
Mm. And is it true that in the early days that it was very hard for the Who to get signed because your image was so
boring?
No, aggressive, and people were frightened of you.
No, I mean I don't know. We got signed straight away as a mod group. When we actually got signed to Decca a bit later, it was the same label and same producer that had produced the Kinks, and I wrote "Can't Explain" as a kind of a Kinks copy song in order to entice Shel Talmy, the Kinks producer, into signing us, which he did. You know, he fell for the bait, and we got a hit.
Yeah, we got a hit. You got a hit, a great song. I've never looked back. Now we should just quickly talk about Tommy, because did you ever think that you would have a hit musical on Broadway, which is now a huge hit both in England and America? It's won all sorts of awards. But looking at that footage there, you know, I can't. Andrew Lloyd Webber never did anything like that, did he?
No, it wasn't a surprise. You know, it's part of my master plan.
I thought as much.
Yeah, no, I've always had a master plan, you know. And the only part of my master plan that I've never actually succeeded in is selling 20 million albums as a solo artist. I put out solo albums and have a lot of fun doing them and think, this is going to be the one, and I just ring up the record company. How's it going? Very badly, Pete. Very badly. Very sad performance. This.
The floor manager, you know, what does this sign mean in show business? Do you know?
It means this is boring. This has got nothing to do with music.
This has nothing to do with music. Can we move along? In that case, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Pete Townsend for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from him shortly.